Hey, Paul here, and this is another review from Common Touch of Fantasy. Today's review is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I really like this one. It's one of my favorite books I've read this year. When I started getting back into reading fantasy, Patrick Rothfuss' name was everywhere. His Kingkiller Chronicles, along with Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archives, were being called the best new fantasy series currently being written. I decided to jump into Name of the Wind because I recently got his The Slow Regard of Silent Things, and I got it signed, and so I kind of wanted to read that relatively soon. And also I wanted to finish the year off with a popular series. Alright. The Name of the Wind is about a gifted young man. His name is Quoth. And he overcomes the death of those he loves very early in the book. He has a remarkably difficult time because he lives homeless and on the streets, but eventually he makes his way to the university to study magic. In this book, the magic is called sympathy, and it is where you have a small piece of something and you can link it to a larger piece of that same element and use like an energy source that you can transfer energy. Anyways, he struggles to pay his tuition and afford things while he's going to university, and he doesn't really get along with everyone. It mainly focuses on his studies at the university. He meets a mysterious girl that he pretty much falls for, and he's unwrapping the mystery of his family's death. And also, he plays music, and he does so very well. Because, his family used to be a troupe of musicians and storytellers, and actors and actresses. So, he's telling his tale to a chronicler that has searched him out. He is currently an innkeeper, an older gentleman, and the chronicler wants to know who Quoth really is. So Quoth is telling him all this story of his origin, his upbringing, and how he became the person that everyone knows about, but the truth of it all. I really enjoy this book. There's some really strong themes. The first theme is that life is messy, even for a fantasy protagonist. The Name of the Wind is honest with its portrayal of our main character, Quoth. Even though he is our main character, he goes through a lot of horrible times. His troop being massacred along with his parents, living on the streets for 3 years. And he gets beat up periodically by people while he's living on the street. He has to fight the elements, the cold, the rain, the snow. He doesn't have shoes for most of the time while he's homeless. And then when he goes to the university, he can't pay his tuition, and he has a lot of anxiety with his money. He has to borrow money, and he has to try to pay it back, and it's really difficult for him. All the small trappings in classic sword and sorcery literature where the main character will just happen to do something astonishing, or things just work out for him just because he's like the chosen one or the prophesied. That's not something that Rothfuss wanted for this book. He wanted to have an honest story of a guy that worked hard, had a good wit, was smart, yes, and he has good character. His successes, though, creates enemies, and his strong will butts heads with people all the time throughout the book. You would think his teachers love him, but a lot of them don't. His life is complicated, just like our own lives. So it's nice to read a fantasy character that we can relate to. Our own lives are very sticky and messy, so it's nice to read something about someone that's considered a hero, but also having issues as well. Another theme in this book is that your life has to be in balance. There must be a balance between work, rest, and fun. Creating time for your friends, and creating time for that which like your soul speaks to. For that, it is close music. He is able to spend time on his music so that he doesn't burn out with the university and all his anxieties going on in his everyday life. He realizes that he can get burned out, and that he will never survive the university if he keeps doing what he's doing. That goes into the next point, is that friendships are very important. They're just as important as love. In our society, we stress like girlfriends and boyfriends and husbands and wives a lot. And friendships are important too. And Quoth and Denna, which is the female protagonist, they're great friends. Because Denna trusts Quoth because he doesn't like try to hit on her all the time or push her into something that she's uncomfortable with. They're both into each other, but it's just not the right time at the moment. But Quoth is still her friend. He doesn't get upset when she doesn't like fall over him, or he doesn't get upset when she's with somebody else. He's really focused on just being her friend, which is great, and it's a good moral lesson for guys today, because a lot of times guys will have their object of their affection, and they will try to pursue them as soon as it's not within reach, or the other person doesn't reciprocate their feelings. They get upset, and they shouldn't. These are real people, and Quoth realizes that and treats her as his friend. My expectations when reading this book was to have like a Harry Potter like book, but with less fantasy tropes. Because I knew that's kind of what this book was about. That's what Rothfuss was about. My expectation was correct, but there's a lot more story to it than that. I really enjoyed the music and the stories that were being told within the book. The stories within the story were very entertaining, and it was the way that Rothfuss explained the stories that gave us an idea of how the world works. My favorite scene in the entire book was when Quoth played an extremely difficult piece of music on his lute, and he sung, and someone sang the counter verse with him, and it was just absolutely beautiful. Something went wrong, but he was able to still pull it out, and everyone loved it, and he got recognized as being one of the best musicians in town. The book is written in both the third and the first person. The third person is present day, where the chronicler is taking down all the notes, the story of Quoth, while Quoth tells it to him in the inn. There with them is Bast, which is Quoth's apprentice. And the first person view is Quoth actually telling the story to the chronicler. The majority of the story is the first person story, which is great. I love first person stories. The prose is fantastic in The Name of the Wind. There's some amazing poetry and some lines with wisdom that are in there. Some of my favorite lines are this. This is actually my favorite. Perhaps the greatest faculty our minds possess is the ability to cope with pain. Classic thinking teaches us of the 4 doors of the mind, which everyone moves through according to their need. First is the door of sleep. Sleep offers us a retreat from the world and all its pain. Sleep marks passing time, giving us distance from the things that have hurt us. When a person is wounded, they will often fall unconscious. Similarly, someone who hears traumatic news will often swoon or faint. This is the mind's way of protecting itself from pain by stepping through the first door. The second door is the door of forgetting. Some wounds are too deep to heal, or too deep to heal quickly. In addition, many memories are simply painful. There is no healing to be done. The saying, time heals all wounds, is false. Time heals most wounds. The rest are hidden behind this door of forgetting. The third door is a door of madness. There are times when the mind is dealt such a blow it hides itself in insanity. While this may not seem beneficial, it is. There are times when reality is nothing but pain, and to escape that pain, the mind must leave reality behind. The last door is death, the final resort. Nothing can hurt us after we are dead, or so we have been told. And another quote that I like is, or these two. Bones men, regret stays with you forever. The best lies about me are the ones I told. The boy grows upward, but the girl grows up. It's in relation to growing up. So, there's a ton of awesome quotes and The Name of the Wind. And I've never really read a fantasy book yet that's as so quotable as this. So, I'm going to read this in the future again. Just so I have an idea of like all the quotes. And because I loved it too. Right? The Name of the Wind took Rothfuss quite a while to write. He wanted to write a book that didn't have as many fantasy tropes as the classic fantasy series does. He has said in his interviews that reading bad books is as important as reading good books, because you know what you do not want in your story by reading the bad books. Even though he did succeed with having less fantasy tropes, there are still a few in the book. And it's not a complete step away from the fantasy genre, but it's close enough that it seems modern, and it's a nice spin on the classic fantasy book. The Name of the Wind won the Clue Award in 2007. I would recommend The Name of the Wind to just all fantasy fans. The fantasy genre has a lot of grimdark these days, and this is a fun book to read, and it's not like super serious. There's some sad parts in it, but it's not like everyone dies, the world's horrible type book, you know? And there's not a lot of cheesy elements to it. There's a few, but it tries to stay away from the cheesy elements that some fantasy has. This is one fantasy book that I would introduce to people that don't read fantasy that much, because there's a lot of similarities to Harry Potter, but it's more of a realistic Harry Potter, you know, in the fact that Quoth isn't as perfect as Harry, things just kind of work out for Harry, it seems, you know. I absolutely love this book, and I can't wait to read the sequel. I gave the book a 5 out of 5, and it's one of my favorite books now. I hope to read it again in the future, and can't wait to the sequel. The book I am currently reading is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. It's my one classic book for the month, and I've always wanted to read it, and I'm giving it a try. And I'm also looking at this one here, The World of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin and a bunch of other people that basically read it for him. So we'll see what those are like. Thank you for watching this review. Don't forget to visit me on cometouchoffantasy.com, and please subscribe. I'll talk to you later.